So one of my question is for any Bitcoiner that, want to orange pill family members or friends, how do you start orange pill your family members?
Initially, I wanted to tell everybody about Bitcoin. I wanted to kind of like shove it to everybody's throat. And soon you realize like people don't want to talk with you anymore. So my friends start to be like, oh man, just stop that Bitcoin shit. So right now I'm more like people can approach me if they want to, of course, or they book consultation with me. But for like the family dinners, I was doing right now in El Salvador and also in Ghana a workshop for Bitcoin educators that was called Handling Objections. And this workshop is designed for people who want to educate Bitcoin, but they are they are very keen on like just argumenting like why Bitcoin is better, why it's amazing and so on. And they forgot to listen to the other party. So this, what I was teaching to educators, and this applies actually to things outside of Bitcoin as well. This applies to handling relationships, family dinners, it's basically a communication skill. So I was teaching people like argumentation shouldn't be the first response that we are providing to another party. So imagine you start to talk about Bitcoin and people start to object and they're going to say, I don't think it's going to work. I think the government will stop it. I think it's only used by criminals. I think it's going to burn our planet or whatever argument. Many times the educators or any Bitcoiner responds like, oh, that's not true. And let me tell you why. And they start to shove the arguments. But if you think about it, once somebody's objecting, the person is basically speaking from like reptilian brain, from amygdala. They are afraid. You hit them with some information that contradicts their belief system. So they start to tell you, and they start to kind of protect themselves and their belief system with an argument, with an objection. And if you want to speak to them from your neocortex with logic and arguments, it will not work because they are in emotion. Something got them triggered. So what you need to do, firstly, you need to understand what's the fear behind their objection. How do they feel at that moment? If somebody is objecting to environmental problems, probably that person is very concerned with planet Earth, warming up or environment being destroyed. He didn't have the data so far to understand that Bitcoin is not doing that, but if you start to shove the data, it will not work. So first of all, you need to accept the argument, the objection. And accept doesn't mean to agree with the argument. Accept means that just to acknowledge that the person is sane for saying that. Because maybe when you were learning about Bitcoin, maybe you had the same objection as well. So what you can say, like the first step to really in communication is to clarify and understand the objection. So you can ask the person like, okay, so do you mean that Bitcoin will not work because the government will stop it? Or do you mean Bitcoin will not work because people will not care about that? So first you need to clarify what the person is really saying and objecting to. Because otherwise you start to argument to something completely different than what the person really wanted to say. So, and once you understand as the first steps, clarification and understanding of the objection, the second step is accepting it and maybe saying, well, I had it the same way when I was learning about Bitcoin. And this way you show the person like they're not stupid for saying that. They are sane and they have some fears in themselves. And many other people have the same thing, because person objecting might be in the fear of like, I'm the only one, stupid one that thinks that. And many Bitcoiners make them look stupid, like, oh man, you don't know what you're talking about and so on. So the person shuts down and they don't talk to you anymore. Like hearing objections is very positive because that means the person cares. The person cares about what you're saying and they are willing to go into discussion with you. And this way, you know what the person is objecting to, where they stop, what they need to get clarified, and you can go through the objection with them and help them understand. So you kind of ease down the amygdala so that the neocortex can speak to the neocortex. And that's where the argument is only the third step in the whole process.
That's so interesting. I never thought about it. And it's so right. That's why you're educated, man. You know how the brain works. You know how the brain works. It's a good process.
That's very important. And again, this is something that applies to anything. It doesn't only apply to Bitcoin. It applies to communication in relationships. Like I'm with my girlfriend for 4 years. We never had an argument. Never in 4 years. Why? Because we really, once something starts to come up, we really talk to each other and listen to each other without kind of
important.
Because many pairs, many couples I see just, shouting their own arguments to each other, not listening to the other side. We try to clarify everything. We try to really understand what the person thinks and feels. And we somehow understand like, wow, like we're on the same page. without going into like shouting and stuff. Because when people start to shout already, that's mostly, it's not aggression, it's mostly not being understood. It's mostly like frustration that build up of like, that person is not listening to me. So I start to raise my voice. Maybe this louder volume will go through the barrier of understanding of the other person. That's how the arguments mostly come up. So if you really take patience and again, it's not intuitive. You need to consciously think about it and consciously think what the other person thinks and clarify. But then there's no place for arguments. There's only place for discussion, understanding, and regular talk without the need to raise a voice in most of the cases, right? We have very, very open relationship with my girlfriend, to talk about everything, but we never needed to have a regular argument how people imagine that.
Ready to explore the full AmityAge portfolio? We support Bitcoiners at every stage of their journey. Unlock liquidity without selling your SATA through our concierge Bitcoin-backed loans. Experience seamless, private transactions with our OTC financial services, or build your own hash power with our curated mining solutions. From education to infrastructure, AmityAge helps you build long-term value in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Visit our website to learn more.